Hey, this is H1. We're going to be running it back with another episode talking about chess knowledge, chess wisdom, and chess understanding again. Now, today we are going to be going over a really important tip. Actually, really important for you to improve past the point that you are at. Every chess player should know this. If you do not know this, I'm glad you are here. And the thing that you have to know is about pawn breaks. Pawn breaks are really important. Let's get into 3 different scenarios that could happen in your games. And this is just the basis. This is just the foundation for harder problems. All right. So when you look at this board right here, right behind me, and I'm going to put up the digital board too, white is definitely winning. And you might be asking yourself, what is the best move here? Because can't white just do like G6 and push the pawn up and win the game? If white does G6 here, which is not the best move whatsoever. It's not the best move at all. Let's just put that in here for everybody that only sees 2D. If the move G6 happened in this game, H takes on G6, H takes on G6, King F6, King H5, King G7, and this is completely a draw. White isn't winning anymore. Triple zeros, baby. That king is gonna block that pawn forever because white doesn't have opposition, which I will create a video on. No worries. I just want y'all to know exactly, I just want you beginners to know exactly how to do these pawn breaks. We don't have to talk about opposition. You don't have to know about that at this present moment. Let's put the position back now. Now that we know that G6 is the worst move that you can play here because we want to win games, not lose, and we should take every draw as a loss, the best move has to be H6 because we're not moving the king back and giving our opponent space. It has to be H6. But why H6 exactly? Because if king goes to E6 here, H6, king goes back to try to stop the pawn. And we're going to do G6, and it seems like we are just giving up a pawn. But we are not just giving up a pawn because after H takes on G6, if they leave the pawn up, so if they do this move king to F6, we can take this pawn. The H6 pawn is blocking the square G7, and this king cannot stop this H pawn. Let me just explain that because I know, some beginners need to know exactly why on everything, which is really good. Ask questions. If you do not ask questions, you won't learn a thing, all right? After G6, H takes on G6, and I know y'all like me throwing pieces, so why not? That H pawn is gone. The king is not within the box. The king cannot catch up to this H pawn anymore. And we're gonna queen that a pawn, and you should be able to win the game. Please learn how to king, queen checkmate because you never know when you have to do it. And trust me, as a beginner, you have to do it most of the time because people are gonna be testing you. They're not gonna be resigning very quickly. And so that's one pawn break. It's kind of, it's a simple mistake that could happen with the move G6. But now that you know it, now that I showed you, that mistake should not happen. But if it does, no worries, just don't do it again, all right? This is the second scenario. The king is far away from the pawns, but our pawns have a little bit more space. And this is why space is really important in chess because our pawns is closer to queening than our opponent's pawns. If it was the opposite way around, we wouldn't even have this pawn break. So we have more advantage the further our pawns are to the other opponent's side here. Now, what do you think is the first move to play here? It's not moving the king over because they could just trap our king. If we try to move our king up here, they could just trap our king on the first rank and eventually win the game and take our pawns. And that's why we do the very crucial move, not F6, not H6, because if we do a move like H6, they're just gonna take it, then eventually bring their king over and win. Let me just show you that right quick. They're just gonna eventually get a position like this. Our king is blocked, and now their king could just grab our H and F pawn. So we want to do this move G6. What is the purpose of G6? Because can't the opponent just capture our pawn with the F or H pawn? Not exactly, especially with this unique move h6, this unique in-between move h6. What happens after h6? Well, there's two pawns that Black can capture, and they all fall for the same thing. Because if G takes on f5, H takes on g7, we're queening. If G takes on h6, f6, we're queening. Do not capture pawn, f6. The king cannot catch up to this pawn any longer. This is a loss for the Black pieces. It was already busted before I even started moving the g6 pawn. If the g6 pawn stays right there and they try to move the king up, we can just take whatever pawn and queen. And so Black was losing from the start, and that's how important pawn breaks are. One more example, all right? Stay with me. This is a little bit more tricky, but it's the same concept as the previous one, where we are going to trap our opponent into getting one of our pawns promoted. And if it was in the middle, or if their pawns was a little bit further down, we don't have a sufficient pawn break. So remember, space is important. Write that down. First move, f5. We're not moving the king because we already know that they're just going to capture all of our pawns. f5. After f5, Black has a few options here. They can put the king to b4, they can take the pawn, or they can try to do something weird. Like they can try to do g5. Let's just get this out the way. We could just en passant twice and then win, all right? Not en passant twice, en passant once, and then after that, you know, capture both the pawns and we can win. If you don't know what en passant is, I already made a video about it. Go to that video, learn it, and then come back. After f5 here, in this position, they can't do f6 because we just take the e pawn and then we just move forward. If they do e takes on f5, g takes on f5, our next move after king here is e6. And if they bring the king up, they can't reach our pawn. Our pawn is going to promote. It's going to queen. And if they capture the pawn, it cannot catch up. It's going to queen again. That pawn is a track star. Now, let's just move on. So we got all those scenarios out the way. Black can't move a pawn at all. That's impossible here. So after f5, probably the best option here is king b4. Most likely the best option here is king b4. Because you want the king to defend, Black already knows he's in trouble. If we capture this pawn, we're losing because f takes and this is losing. We don't have any pawn breaks anymore. If we do g5, we're just gonna get a pawn captured. That's why we have this intermediate move. There's actually two ways to win. You can put in the comments down below the other way to win. But this one looks a little bit more fun, g5. And you might be thinking, oh snap, one of our pawns is gonna get taken. But it's the same concept as the previous scenario, because if e takes on f6, we have this fascinating move g6. And if f takes on g6, e6, e7, e8, queen. Same thing happens here. If h takes on g5, f6, g takes on f6, h6, h7, h8, queen. Now, the move that you was waiting for. If king goes back and just leaves everything to be captured, we can't capture no pawns at this present moment, because if we capture, it's a draw. It's not a draw. Our opponent's gonna win here at this moment. You only got one best move. Actually, a couple best moves. You have to do either f6 or g6. I like f6. After we do f6, g takes on f6, not capture the pawn, but we could do g6. F takes on g6, h takes on g6, and we're gonna queen the pawn. You can actually do this the other way too. You could do g6, here, and then f6. And we're gonna eventually queen the pawn. We're gonna eventually do that. You actually gotta do like h takes on g6, because I think if you do like e takes on f6, that pawn might be a little bit too close, and so you have to like, you might be a little bit in trouble. Like if you don't do h takes on g6, all right? That'll be a little bit damaging. Let's not lose the game. When we do a pawn break, we do the pawn break right, all right? We do the pawn break right. But that was the third scenario. I'm glad I was able to teach y'all that. If you learned something new today, just like the video, all right? Keep on fighting to the end, staying focused in chess and in real life too. Peace.